Hello, Lee. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi.
Oh, great. Thanks for coming on the show.
It's okay.
Great. So we were going to talk about the Chinese investment deal that's recently been announced. It's the biggest Chinese investment deal in the UK outside of London.
That's right.
So can you tell us a little bit about what this is going to mean for Sheffield?
Yeah, so basically we have done a deal which will see a partnership created between a Chinese company called Sichuan Guodong Construction Group, and the partnership is between the council and that company. There will be a partnership board that will meet face-to-face at least twice a year, and together we will identify investment projects to be delivered in Sheffield. And it's a 60-year partnership, but there will be a considerable amount of money invested in Sheffield by the Chinese over a number of years. I don't think it will take anything like 60 years for that to happen, but certainly the first tranche of that funding, the first phase, if you like, is £220 million, probably over the next 2 to 3 years, in a variety of different projects, largely in the centre of Sheffield. So it should see significant investment in the city, which is good news for everybody and creates jobs.
Wow, wonderful. So how are the projects going to be identified?
Well, they'll be commercial property projects, so it will depend on the economy, what where Sheffield's got gaps in the market. So, for example, we haven't got a 5-star hotel in the city, so that's one that's being talked about potentially. We have the population in the city centre is increasing quite dramatically, so I think it's around 20,000, whereas 15 years ago it was around 2,000. So more and more people wanting to live and work in the city centre, so that means scope for more residential apartments or even houses in some of the city centre fringe areas, more office developments, particularly HS2's station is coming to the centre of the city, we expect now, so that would obviously create more scope for office-based professions and the kind of jobs that are attracted by HS2 in the centre of Sheffield. And then there are always schemes like leisure schemes and retail schemes. We haven't got a conference centre at the moment, so that could be something that could be looked at. So these are hypothetical examples. So the board will look at potential projects in the city and then look at which ones to back and move forward.
Fantastic. So presumably a lot of jobs are going to be created. What kind of jobs exactly are we looking at, do you think?
So first of all, there will be the jobs for the construction jobs. Companies that are building the developments will employ people. Most of those, or many of those, will be from the local area, so it will create jobs in the construction industry. There will be, if it's a residential apartment, there won't be that many jobs come for that once it's built, because it's where people live. But if it's hotel or leisure or retail or office construction developments, then obviously you bring the companies that operate the retail or the leisure or the hotels, and they will employ all sorts of people, hundreds or thousands of people in those jobs. So I think there's those direct jobs, but also if we get the economy moving in the right direction, as it increasingly is doing, then the money that those jobs create will then be spent in the city and will create further jobs in unrelated areas, in other restaurants, bars, shops, all sorts of areas in the city. So I think that's how the economy works. The money, that extra money that they will develop will itself create further jobs that are not directly related to this initiative.
Yeah, wonderful. So jobs are a major area where it's going to improve. Are there other areas like transport?
Yeah, potentially transport. I mean, transport's more difficult because it's not always clear how you're going to make money off transport. So people have asked me a lot, what do the Chinese get out of this? Well, what they get out of it is that they obviously want to make a profit, just as anybody who builds anything in the city. If it's not government-backed, then they want to make a profit out of it. And increasingly, indeed, even governments want to make money because the public finances are so tight. So they want to make a profit out of it. But that's what we expect.
Yeah, wonderful. So why do you think Sheffield's been chosen for this investment rather than anywhere else?
Well, I think there are a few reasons Sheffield's been chosen. One, I think the UK as a country is seen as a stable place for people to invest. And we've had Brexit, but I'm talking about if you look over the last 200 or 300 years, the UK has been a country that's had a history of people investing in developments and generally It's a stable country. We don't tend to have coups and things like that, and the economy is relatively stable. We've had the economic crash and things like that, but over the longer period, it tends to be a more stable economy, unlike some of the countries that are completely either booming or having real problems over years and years and years. So that's good for us, and I think Sheffield is seen as a place where it's a big city. London's obviously a huge city, but very, very expensive to do anything in, very overheated. It costs a fortune to build anything in London, so difficult sometimes to get money back on it, whereas Sheffield is seen as a city that's on the up, that's kind of, we've redeveloped somewhat after the collapse of the steel industry, but there's still lots of scope to develop further. So I think people see that the northern cities and perhaps connecting us up with HS2 and HS3 across the Pennines will help to see the northern cities prosper and do far better than they have over the last 20 or 30 years. And so now is a good time to get into a city like Sheffield as we're on the up, because if you get in now and build the developments, then you'll prosper from the demand that's created. And if you build apartments, they'll get filled. If you build offices, then the jobs will come, because the economy is generally on an upward trajectory. So I think those are the key things. And we've obviously got two big universities, great quality of life, centrally located in the city. So there's a lot of attractions, I think, to Sheffield.
Yeah, and as you say, a lot of the city is underdeveloped, isn't it? There are areas, ripe for something to come into.
Yeah, and I think that's precisely why this investment is targeted in the city centre, because Sheffield, because it was a heavy manufacturing city and not a regional centre in the way that Nottingham, Manchester or Leeds is, just because we're right on the border between the East Midlands and Yorkshire and the Humber. So we didn't have a lot of the office-based jobs in the city as other big cities of a similar size did. But now the city's changing. There's much more. We have a far greater number of jobs in things like the creative and digital industries. We do much more employment in legal services, architecture, etc. And those kind of jobs tend to locate in city centres. So there's big scope for us to build up our city centre and make it much more of a commercial centre to provide those kind of office-based jobs. So I think there's huge potential in Sheffield.
Great. Well, it sounds great news for the city, but some people have raised concerns that such a lot of investment is coming from one source. What would you say to them?
Yeah, I think I understand people being nervous. It's an odd thing, actually, because people always say, well, we need some major investors in the city, and then when we get them, they get nervous because they are major investors. So I think the great news, obviously, is that this much money could be going to another city, and it's actually coming to Sheffield. But just to reassure people, we already have a number of other investors already investing in the city on a daily basis. So actually, it's not probably well known, but the state of Norway own half of Meadowhall, and obviously they're at least in part funding the proposal for Meadowhall to expand into leisure. We have IKEA just about to be built. That's a Swedish company investing Swedish money. There are two Chinese-funded developments all the way on site, one on the Bramall Lane roundabout and one where the digital campus is opposite the train station. There's two new office blocks being built there with Chinese money. A number of the student developments that you see around the city are often funded from places like Singapore or the Middle East. So this is the way the economy works. And there's also obviously British investors investing as well on a daily basis in the city. So what this does is provide us with a significant amount of money that we can spend over a few years and have a partnership where we can, perhaps because we've got that partnership, we can do some of the projects that others on their own find more difficult to do. So it should be good news for the city. And as I said, this investment could be going to Leeds or Manchester. Instead, it's actually coming to Sheffield. So I think